Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card. Today I've got another Christmas card for you. I'm using a couple of new products in addition to some old ones. This is the Festival of Trees stamp set by Stampin' Up. It's a clear photopolymer set. It comes in a nice case here. I'm also using some Stampin' Up crumb cake cardstock. And I've got some new products by Souk and Echo. That's how you pronounce it, actually. I looked it up. So this is Irresistible Texture Spray in white. This is Irresistible Pico Embellisher in Pear Tart. And then I've got some Ranger Stickles in yellow, and then I'm also using some Wow Embossing Powder Glitter in Sparkling Snow. So let me start first by using some Colorbox white pigment ink and this tree from the Stampin' Up set, which is the most realistic tree in the set. I'm just going to stamp this randomly across the bottom of my card. This piece of cardstock is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but I'm going to be trimming it down. And I'm just going to randomly go up and down so it looks a little bit more realistic. Now after I let that dry, I'm going to prepare my Stamp-A-Majig because I want it to be exact. So I stamped it with some Wild Wasabi Stampin' Up ink, and then I thought, you know, this ink pad is a little bit dry, so I went and got my re-inker. See, I've got this lined up here, and as you can see, I'm re-inking it, which was my mistake number 1 in this card today. So I think it didn't really need it, and so once I re-inked it, there was way too much ink on there, as you can see when I re-stamped it on my Stamp-A-Majig. So I kind of let it seep in a little bit for like 5 minutes. Even then it was still a little bit too juicy, but whatever, I got over it. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my Stamp-A-Majig on top of the white tree, and then I'm moving it just a tad to the lower left. And that way it'll stamp some green, kind of that ghosting technique that I've been using, and it'll look like there's snow on top of the tree. So I'm going to do that across all of these trees. And then I'm going to go back and just ink up my stamp with the green Wild Wasabi ink and just randomly stamp it, and then I'll stamp it the second time for the second generation stamping, so it kind of looks like the trees are fading into the background. So I'm going to do this all the way across my card. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is create some snow at the bottom. I kind of played around with how I was going to do this, and then I settled on just kind of inking it up like you would inking the edge of the paper with your ink pad, just rubbing it up against the edge while you hold it with one hand, and just kind of not going up too far because it's going to be snow here, but it'll kind of fade out as it goes higher, just because that's the way the ink applies to the cardstock when you're applying it that way. So I'm going to sprinkle it with some Sparkling Snow embossing powder, which has glitter to it, and then I'm going to heat set it. And I really like the way this came out because it kind of fades as it goes up, so it looks a little bit like real snow. And this is my glitter cloth, which is kind of a sticky cloth, and it's awesome because it picks up all the stray glitter and embossing powder that gets left on your craft mat. Okay, I'm going to stamp my star next, which is also part of this set. This is another Souk and Echo, that's how you pronounce it, product. So it's like a neon ink. It's a pigment ink, and it's yellow here, so I'm going to stamp it on my crumb cake cardstock, and because it's pigment, it lays on top of my cardstock. And then I wanted it to shine a little bit more, so because it's pigment ink, you can heat emboss it. So I went ahead and sprinkled some clear embossing powder on that. And now I'm going to stamp my sentiment, which also is part of this set, and I'm using some VersaFine Black Onyx ink, and that came out good. And then I'm going to take my Irresistible spray. Now I've already used this spray before, and so when I started pumping it, I kind of had some trouble. It was leaking out a little bit. I think it was clogged, and it made kind of a mess on my hand. So if you're kind of not a person who likes much of a mess, then you may not want to use this. But I loved this product because it gives a really cool, nice texture to the snow, so it kind of raises above your cardstock. So then I realized I needed more. So I sprayed it, and again it was clogged, so I decided to just go off to my sink and fix it. And all I had to do, I showed you here, I just pulled the top off, and I ran some water on the inside right here, and then also on the cap, and I also cleared out the nozzle. And I just ran water over it. I really didn't do anything else, and now it sprays perfectly. I just stuck my brush in there, and I hit it at the top with the edge of my hand, and it shook the snow onto my cardstock. Now, it does kind of make a mess. If I had to do this again, I would have done it in a box because I got it on my table, it was all over my craft mat, and it's textured. So it does dry and it kind of pops off or whatever your craft mat, it's no big deal. But anyway, I would do it in a box. Now I also stamped the inside, and then I've got some slow-mo here of my next mistake, which, yes, it fell off. But because it was kind of on the lower side where my signature, my name would be, I figured I'm just going to write my name on it. So I quickly got over this and tossed it off the side. Anyway, so now I've got my panel finished, and I'm going to put my Stampin' Up! Foam adhesive, just some dimensionals on there, take off the backing, and then I'll pop it up there on a 5.5 by 4.25 inch folded piece of cardstock. Now here I'm using the Irresistible Pico Embellisher. So I'm going to screw off this top, and you'll see it's almost like a needle that goes inside the top to make sure that it doesn't clog. So I have used this before, and the second time I went to use it, it wasn't clogged at all. So you can see how it sort of comes out, and it's like an embellishment. It's kind of like this thick liquid. And so it makes such a fine line because the tip is so fine that I drew kind of up the trunks, and then I randomly kind of went over some of the branches that came out of the tree. And the reason I did this is I wanted another kind of green color to give it some more dimension, and then I also wanted the texture of it, so it's going to kind of dry solid. And if you want to go to my blog, I've got a close-up picture of what this looks like, in addition to a picture of the snow, so you can see what the texture of the Irresistible white spray looks like. So notice I kind of skipped some of the branches so that you could see that some branches were in front of other branches. So I'm just quickly running through here so you can see. But I added it pretty much to every tree. And I really like it, how it's shiny, yet another color, and so it added quite a bit. Now I did accidentally squeeze too hard and a bunch came out, so I'm just showing you here that you can just take a tissue and it wipes right off. It was no big deal. And then to put it back on, you stick the top, which has kind of a needle thing. You might need some glasses to make this happen. And then screw it on, and then that's how you store it. And then I decided to add some stickles to the star. So I kind of lump it mostly in the middle, and then I take my paper piercer and spread the glitter to the tip. And that way it evens out across the whole star. And that is pretty much it. So hopefully you like it. I like the different textures with the glitter, the embossing powder, and the Pico Embellisher and the snow. It's really a cool card. Anyway, so I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.